What's up, everybody? It's Tristan Avakian, guitarist of Ultimate Queen Celebration. I once heard Pete Malandrone, Brian May's guitar tech, say that Brian could pick up any guitar, even a terrible one. In 5 minutes, he'd sound like Brian. I think this is probably true, so I decided to try it. To accomplish this, I went on a search for the worst amp and the most terrible guitar I could possibly find. First, I went to this pawn shop and asked for the cheapest amp they had. That was my sole criteria for selection. And this is it. $25 Canadian. Here's the receipt to prove it. I don't think the company that made this has any connection to the original Silvertone. Chinese regard for copyright law is intermittent at best, and this little puppy probably flies under the radar. It was very likely part of a beginner combo package. Next, I put out an APB to my Facebook friends, kind of a contest to see who had the worst guitar. I didn't want any big brands even remotely associated with quality. No Squiers, no Epiphones. If it had been indifferently maintained, like left in the trunk of a car for a year, so much the better. The winner was Mark Alexander, the owner of a studio here in Toronto called 905 Sound, who has had a cheap Strat copy hanging on the wall of his studio as a decoration for the last decade. It had literally never been played. Let's take a look at it. Cheap, flimsy gig bag, check. It is a Denstone. Never heard of it. Perfect. Nut indifferently cut, cheap tuners. There is some nice flame on the neck. The fingerboard is very dry, raw, really sharp fingerboard edges. The neck angle is absolutely terrible. Well, look at it from this side. Kind of angles down into the body. I think the neck pocket was probably cut badly. As a consequence, the strings are, let me see, over 1/8 of an inch off the deck at the 12th fret. Store a heavy pick in this neck pocket gap. Even the jack's terrible. It's gravity. Makes it fall right out. I want you to listen to this. I don't know if you can hear it. That's the way the pots sound. Smooth, huh? It's like somebody put some ground glass in there. I'm not sure what kind of wood this is. Some kind of Asian mystery wood. It's very, very soft. On the plus side, it's super light. And it's also red. It may not be a red special, but it is red, and it's special. So I'm going to cheat just a little bit, take this thing away and give it a basic setup, at least try to make it somewhat playable, and hey, maybe even put a high E string on it. I'll see you in a minute. So I took the neck off and shimmed it with a light pick, and that brought the action down to a reasonable about 1/16, the 12th fret. I intonated it. It has to be said that these tuners and this bridge are absolutely terrible. I think that whoever made this guitar never imagined that it would be even tuned, let alone intonated. But now it plays pretty well up and down the neck. To a point. There are some problems, particularly with the G string pulling sharp at the 1st fret, but that's to do with the way the nut is cut, and I'm not going to get into that. I simply will avoid that chord. Likewise, there's some notes that fret out on the high E string, but once again, that has to do with fretwork, and I'm not going to mess with that either. I'm just going to avoid that note. So I think this is about as good as it's going to get, and let's move on to the amp, see what it does. Overdrive channel all the way up to 10, of course. It's got some gain, so it's a good starting point. It does have this terrible fizzy quality of the high end that many small practice amps, transistor practice amps of this kind have. And I can't really get rid of it. I can only make it worse. The quality is still very much present, even with the treble rolled almost all the way off. But don't worry, I've got an idea. This, my friends, is a tea towel. And it's a tea towel that I use. That's not dirt, actually. I use this to wipe out my skillet. So that's, the brown stains are, well, they're not what you might think. They're literally iron, they're rust. I'm going to drape that over the speaker, use it as a filter. to tame down some of the aforementioned disgusting high end and warm it up a little bit. I hear that Brian did this with the Deaky sometimes. I'll leave it up to you guys at the forums to decide how much the ferrous content of the tea towel affects the attenuation of the high frequencies. And now I'm going to apply a couple of hacks, or weird tricks as the internet likes to call them. Brian's so-called main setting is the bridge and middle together. When I'm called upon to get a reasonable approximation of Brian's sound with a Stratocaster, that's usually what I do. I use the bridge and middle together and I roll off some tone. Brian's pickups are wired in series, so they're naturally hotter and darker than pickups wired in parallel. This is the Boost Overdrive pedal from Tech 21. I did a demo of a prototype of this pedal a while ago at the factory. It was kind of a different situation. I was playing Andy Barta's mid-60s Telly through the vintage Plexi that he uses as a benchmark for everything. So obviously we're doing something a little bit different today. And I'm only going to be using the boost side of this pedal, not the overdrive. So there's no distortion, no overdrive, no tonal coloration whatsoever. It's only a clean boost. It's makeup gain to compensate for these cheap, weak-ass pickups. The fact that they're wired in parallel, and also the fact that I rolled off some tone, which also reduces gain. Let's see how it sounds. Still too trebly. I'm going to roll off just a little bit more. I think we're going to need another tea towel. Okay, so I added a second tea towel. As you can see, this one's red, so that should make all the difference. Well, I think that's about as good as it's going to get, so let's roll with it. If you like this, if you found it entertaining, even if you hated it, please hit the like button and subscribe and ding the bell next to it to be notified of new content. I'm going to be uploading stuff from the road whenever I can. I'm about to go out with Mark Martel to Australia, New Zealand, some dates in the US, Quebec. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I'd love you to join me. So I'll see you somewhere out on the road.